welcome to the No Hair, All Heart podcast. I am your host, Mookie Spitz, and I have no hair, but my heart is all about relationships and dating and marriage in this solo podcast. From soulmate to fuckboy, know where you stand in love. How your partner defines you will define your entire relationship. Quick disclaimer, friends, family, especially lovers, might tell you that I might be the least qualified person to give advice about relationships, dating, and marriage. Duly noted, and I agree. But at the same time, because I have made so many mistakes, I might very well have picked up some tips and best practices that might prove illuminating. So bear with me as I share my point of view about what I call the 5 levels of love. I'm eager to hear what you might think, and at the very least, this might reinforce some of your own feelings about relationships, why they work, and also why they often do not. Are you frustrated in your relationship? Are you confused by how your lover treats you? Do you feel as though you're being misunderstood and disrespected? Maybe even taken advantage of, that you're putting in more than you're getting out? Are you wondering why the same problems might seem to be recurring? This might be for you. The 5 types of lovers. Relationships are as varied and complex as the people who engage in them. That often makes knowing where you stand with a lover confusing. Yet no matter how chaotic a romance seems, how your mate defines you defines your entire interaction with them. Let me explain how this plays out. Whether you like it or not, accept it or not, your lover has a mental and emotional characterization of who you are and how you fit into their life. Sometimes the identity they assign you is influenced by your actual identity and how you treat them. But sometimes not. It's vital you know what it is. And here's why. That's because how they define you is how they treat you. As that definition evolves over time, or it doesn't, it'll reveal just about everything you need to know about where the relationship is or isn't, and where it'll go or won't. The key is to pay attention to how they actually see you, getting over the usual delusions and illusions that so often plague us. People are and act the way that they see you. And whether or not you want them to treat you differently or be someone they might not be has everything to do with how they see you, how they define you in their lives. Now imagine 5 levels, if you will, describing the basic types of lovers. And this is a spectrum that goes from one extreme to the other. At the pinnacle of depth and dedication, the ideal is the soulmate or a life partner. On the low end of this spectrum, full of fun and frivolity, is what's usually described as the fuckboy or fuckgirl, or a little bit more PG or PC, the proverbial friend with benefits, hashtag FWB. You need to learn these and understand these. There might be other levels and other descriptions and other categories, but I've never really seen it broken down like this from high to low with any degree of rigor. Now, once again, I'm not a life coach or a professional or a psychologist or a marriage counselor or couples counselor or therapist. I'm just some guy who's experienced relationships in pretty much all these forms in one way or another. And the number one takeaway that I've gotten is that you need to be in alignment with your lover. This is the key point. Like begets like. If you're in a marriage, then your partner needs to believe it, define it that way, and act that way too. The biggest problem in relationships that I can tell is when the partners are misaligned with how they define each other. Because if you're not on the same level of these five, then it's flat out doomed. Now, there could be movement from one level to the other, like electrons jumping in the shells of atoms. That also depends on the kind of level we're talking about. But for a relationship to stay vibrant, let alone functional, you need to see each other, define each other in the same way. And I think this will become self-evident as we go through these 5 levels of relationships. So let's start at the top and work our way down. Level 1, I'm calling the soulmate or a life partner. And as we'll see, some of the nomenclature and terminology gets a bit sketchy. And it's arbitrary to a certain extent. And I'm making a lot of this up as I go along. So take it or leave it. But I think these descriptions are helpful. If nothing else, this spectrum and this hierarchy, this is what's important. It's also a hierarchy from high to low, I think is an important filter or foundation through which to look at this. The other thing I want to mention right off the top is that these levels and their descriptions are independent of sexual orientation, gender identity, and the usual, whether you're straight or gay or in between, whether you consider yourself biologically one thing or another, it's irrelevant. The whole point here is just the definition of how you relate to yourself in a relationship and how you define your partner. And once again, the number one rule, regardless of who you are or even which level you're at, is that you're both on the same level. You're leveling it up or down, but you need to be aligned. All right. So, level 1 is the soulmate or life partner. Not everyone is lucky enough to find a soulmate, but if so, then by definition, you are mated to your very soul. You are a partner for life. By definition, this type of lover is the real deal. And they'll be with you for, again, by definition, you're connecting souls. You are life partners for the rest of your life. As the name implies, this life partner, soulmate, connects with you to the essence of your very core. And in doing so, exposes every vulnerability and embraces every opportunity for your growth and your enthusiasm for their growth. Proof that they're your soulmate is immediately self-evident in their behavior and yours. You treat each other with the utmost respect and dignity. Active listening, passionate sharing. There's no judgment. There's no expectation of anything in return for that generosity than for both of you to feel that you are free and shining and self-actualized. Booyah. Now, I have actually met a few, they're rare, but I've met a few couples that you can consider soulmates or life partners. In general, they have met when they were both fairly young, but that's not always the case. I knew one couple who met relatively late in life, but the later they meet in life, the less it feels substantiated that they're in it to win it because they're not so road tested. But here's the thing, you can kind of feel it in your gut, just as they feel it in their gut, that they've been meant to be together. There's this transcendence that occurs with these types of people and couples. The idea of metempsychosis and prior lives lived is an ancient one, going back to the Greeks and even further, that we hop generations, that this transmigration of souls is happening, that air quote, in another life, we were a farmer in Burgundy in the Middle Ages. We were driving a rickshaw in India during the spice trade, whatever. There's this mythical kind of nostalgia for placing ourselves directly into history in ways that teach karmic lessons, for example. There's a notion that if you are a good boy or girl, that you will be rewarded with a higher station in your next life. Conversely, if you do bad, you're a sinner, you'll come back as a gnat or a roach, a housefly or a rat, until you figure out your karma and are able to ratchet back up in the next few lives to get back on par and reach that fabled nirvana. Any way you look at this idea of the soulmate has this kind of transcendence to it. And there is a feeling among these partners that they knew each other in another life. That early partnership is again manifest in this incarnation. Now, whether you believe in that or not is irrelevant. The feeling is there of this kind of eternal bond that's natural, often immediate, unquestioned, unwavering. Now, do soulmates and life partners get into arguments? Of course. Does their relationship oscillate like relationships tend to do? Of course. But if we are categorizing relationships, I think it's fair to say at the pinnacle are these people who, by want of circumstance, the roll of the dice, or maybe something spiritual or transcendent, have found each other and are, air quote, meant to be together. And a characteristic of this soulmate life partner arrangement is A, they both know that the other is exactly what they think they are. They both define themselves and each other in this way. I am here for you. You are here for me. There's something magical going on. And we just know to the thick of our very bones that this is it. It's forever. Now, another caveat that we can ascribe to these pairings is, especially these days, you can't really define the relationship with particular boundaries or rules. So there could be soulmates with an open, intimate, or sexual dynamic. Gore Vidal was married to a man for decades. They actually had a platonic relationship. They never were intimate, they never had sex, but they referred to each other as soulmate life partners. They were married, they were buried next to each other. They were inseparable whenever they had the time to be together, but they each led separate lives, inclusive of having multiple parallel lovers. No problem. That's why I think this distinction is important. And it's a distinction that we need to carry through each of these levels, because here's where people get confused. People mix up issues like fidelity, sexuality, expressions of a relationship in intimate or sexual terms that go off into territory that has nothing really to do with the definition of the level at each point. And I think that's important because relationships vary in terms of their sexuality, their intimacy, and the rules that you provide each other for certain types of behavior. And this could go beyond intimacy and sexuality. Those two are the big ones, but you have, for example, soulmates and life partners who might not even live together, just as you could have a married partner that way. So, once again, just to be clear, gender and sexual orientation have nothing to do with these levels, nor does the rules of their engagement along these lines. Does that make sense? Focus on the definition, how you see each other, and the top level, the best we can ever hope for, is the soulmate life partner. Booyah. Now, one level below that, if you will, in intensity, in prioritization, and in this spectrum hierarchy from low to high, we're going high to low, is what I'm calling the husband, wife, or married partner. Once again, independent of gender, and here's where it gets weird. These terms are loaded with historical and cultural baggage, especially husband, wife, and air quote married couple or a marriage. But within this spectrum that we're describing, consider this type, the married husband wife, could be husband husband, wife wife, whatever. This married type is an expression of dedication and commitment. A tier below soulmate and life partner, you choose to marry with another human being whom you want to live your life with. Simple as that. They are your person. They might not be from another life. You might not be sure you'll be with them forever. You're in love and you got a broad range of behaviors, but again, you don't need to live together. It's loose in this kind of behavioral context, but you both agree, you both define each other as I am married to this person, this is my husband, this is my wife, this is my whatever. And you have a level of dedication and commitment to be the most significant person in that other person's life. A great way to look at this is to look at it in terms of open relationship. I know many husband, wife, husband, husband, whatever partners who are fully dedicated and committed to each other. They don't necessarily consider each other soulmates, but they are tight and they are married. Even if they have separate sex lives, they're intimate with other people, they have what could be considered, again, an open relationship. They could bring in a third, they share people, they operate independently. There's a don't don't tell, don't ask kind of situation, or there's open transparency. They could be completely monogamous and zealously so. Once again, it doesn't matter. What's important here is that they self identify as a married couple and they consider each other the other's person. Now, you can be sure they're your person if you're married, if you feel excited and comfortable with them, desired and secure. They want you. They want to be with you. They want you to be a part of their life, and you feel secure. They're not going anywhere. Again, the counterexample of the open relationship is meaningful. They might sleep with other people, but they're there for you. They desire you, and you both feel secure being together. It has longevity, it has a duration. You also want them for the long haul, as I'm saying, and are willing to work to make it so. Ideally, they treat you as you treat them, as a true and lasting companion, as an equal, as a partner in the pageant of life. You guys are married, you're tight. And yes, it's going to be a roiling roller coaster of ups and downs and conflicts and arguments. There's going to be periods where you hate each other, where you love each other. Levels of intimacy and sexuality might come and go, as it were. And like I'm saying, the dynamic of the relationship has all sorts of possible combinations, from exclusive monogamy to a wide open free for all. But what draws the two of you together is what keeps the two of you together, which is the feeling of desiring to be together and knowing for sure that you guys are going to fight it out together. You support each other, you love each other, you guys are married. And once again, you need not be soulmates. And in ways, this is different than the soulmate life partner arrangement in that there's more practicality to this. There's always the feeling that it could end, but you're in it to win it to the best of your ability. You guys are married. Okay, that's level 2. Now let's go down a rung to the boyfriend, girlfriend, with all the caveats that I've been describing in terms of gender and sexual identity and orientation, as well as intimate sexual and other dynamics. There's a broad range here, but we're focusing on level 3 in terms of the definition of each other in a relationship. The most ambiguous of these levels is the boyfriend girlfriend, and it can fall somewhere between, as I'm mentioning, a sexually exclusive long term partner and an indefinitely steady mate, sometimes shared with others. Perhaps the only salient feature is this: some continuity. Despite your dynamic, however varied or rigid it'll be, this person is a regular part of your life. So then you can ask, how is this kind of loose definition of boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever friend different from a married partner? Well, this person is a regular part of your life. They're not a central part of your life. They are a regular and important part of your life, but it doesn't have the gravitas, the prioritization, and the centrality, but also the emotional and practical foundation of a married partner. They're your girlfriend, they're your boyfriend, they're your whatever friend. They self identify as such. Now, how your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever friend treats you also varies greatly, just like the definition does, with the obvious condition that regardless how they define you, it has to be, and here's the big one as we transition out of soulmate marriage to the girlfriend, boyfriend, and other kind of friends, regardless how they define you, They need to treat you special. Otherwise, you're just another passing fancy or a fling, a disposable asset, a recurring bang, not worthy of exerting any effort to find or maintain. This is an essential distinction and one that took me a long time to figure out. And this puts me in the dumbass category. When we go back to the beginning, as I was saying, the caveat here is that I'm not that good at this. If I have dropped the ball, that's been in being blind to this notion that if I am not treated special, then this isn't even really a boyfriend or girlfriend situation. And that'll become self evident as we cover off on level 4 and level 5 below this prioritization schema. If you're not being treated special, then you're not really a regular and meaningful part of the person's life. Again, you're disposable. You're the boy or girl, as we'll soon see, or the fuck boy or fuck girl, which is a level even below that. Now, let me be specific because, again, this is the area that I had to really figure out. And I think this percolates up back into even the marriage. And it demands that a few questions be asked and answered honestly and transparently to know if another person really cares about you. And it has to do with this idea, this behavior of being treated special. Let me illustrate with something banal but practical. Your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever friend comes over to visit you. You don't live together, but you consider yourselves a regular part of each other's life. You're quote unquote going steady. Okay, they come over to your place. Now, how do you treat them? Do you treat them like a guest? Do you make any preparations for their visit? Conversely, if you go over to their place, have they done anything to treat you special? Do you just plug into their life like some component, ad hoc, in for a while, then gone? Or do they go out of their way, and it doesn't take much, to at least communicate to you through their behavior, through their actions, that they consider you special? And by this, I mean, just to be as pragmatic, if again, banal as possible, is the music that they're playing the music that they usually play when they're by themselves? Is the food that they cook the food that they like? If the two of you go out together, do you see a show, a movie, a live music concert that they like or you like? What is the expectation in terms of how the girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever friend treat each other? Now, here's the tricky part. In every relationship, there's a giver and there's a taker. There's an active element and there's a passive one. There's a pitcher and there's a catcher. And this could translate, of course, to a biological and sexual dynamic, but it has everything to do with a kind of power relationship. Whose opinion matters? Who wears the pants, as we say in our proverbial patriarchal society? Who is the boss? Who makes the decisions and whose desire is fulfilled and who is fulfilling them? One example of this is a great one that I heard, which is there's usually a gardener and a plant. The plant sits there and loves to get watered and pruned and cared for. That is the purpose of the plant, the recipient of attention and affection. the energy flows from the gardener to the plant. Now, the role of the gardener and where the gardener gets their own self satisfaction is in tending the plant. The gardener does the watering, the gardener does the pruning, the gardener does all the work, and the work is fulfilling because the plant grows and flourishes. But in order even for this dynamic to work, every once in a while the plant needs to release some juicy fruit, and the gardener then gets to eat. There needs to be a cycle of energy. There needs to be a flow. So even if you are complementary opposites, and chances are you're attracted to each other because you are, there needs to be a flow of energy. There needs to be a giving and a taking, but then a taking and a giving. You could be very much a plant, a prima donna. And again, we're using language from our culture, but you could be the one who receives all the affection, and it's your way or the highway, but something has to be given back. And there needs to be a specialness assigned to this relationship, even if it's complementary, even if it's reciprocal. So, once again, this dynamic of the boyfriend girlfriend highlights the importance of A, acknowledging that there's some kind of power dynamic, but B, ensuring that regardless of that dynamic, there's the reciprocation of the feeling and the behavior that each of this pairing treats the other special. You don't necessarily live together and do everything together. The foundation of your life doesn't revolve around each other like a marriage. This person might not be your person, but they are your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever friend, and you've identified each that way. And again, regardless of your dynamic, you each treat the other special. When they come over, you play their music because they like it. You actually go out of your way to listen to and discover what they like, and then you do it for the simple reason that it brings them happiness and joy, and most importantly, that you treat them special. You treat them different than you treat anyone else in your life in this way. And if you can do that, then you both have a happy boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever friend, level 3 relationship, which could, at that point, if you pass this test in a good way, evolve to a level 4 marriage where you transpose this dynamic, you level up in terms of your dedication and commitment, and take things to that next level. And again, you might not be a soulmate life partner, but there is the potential for marriage. And even if you don't level up for this level 3 to sustain itself in a meaningful way, you need to treat each other special. This is a prerequisite. And now, level 4 will highlight why that is so important. We're going down a notch now from boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever friend. We're staying mindful that this is independent of gender or sexual identity. We're staying independent of even the usual traditional norms. It could be an open relationship, a closed relationship. It doesn't matter. We're talking about the relationship definition and dynamic, level 4, the boy girl. Now, when a woman, and her language is important here, but the essence of this is this power dynamic. We talked about the power dynamic with the girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever friend, but here it's all about the power dynamic. So bear with me a second. When a woman keeps a boy, quote unquote. And conversely, a man keeps a girl, quote unquote. And again, we can adapt to girl, boy, what have you. Then the message is clear. The definition of each other is clear. The appropriate mandated behavior at this level is clear. One is superior to the other. And for all practical purposes, the one is at their service. The relationship, if you can call it that, is by definition unequal and one-sided. And this is what differentiates it from the boyfriend-girlfriend, where instead of having a plant and a gardener, which sounds one-sided but isn't, so long as the plant bears fruit and every once in a while feeds the gardener. This relationship, the boy-girl, is not like that. It is, by the way it's structured, unequal and one-sided. So if you choose to keep a boy or a girl, or you find yourself being a boy or a girl, then expect domination or subservience depending on your respective role. The very use of the diminutive, rather than man and woman, this is my man, this is my lady, that's my boy, that's my girl. The very use of the diminutive, implying youth, but mostly immaturity, reveals the power imbalance. Boys and girls are told what to do and do what they're told. Now, there's the huge fetish community. I don't know if you're familiar with the website Fet Life, which is its own ecosystem. It has doms and femmes, and that in and of itself is the source of probably 100 podcasts. So we're just going to dip our toes a little bit through the lens of level 4. Now, I don't want to overcomplicate it. I want to keep this simple as possible, but it's important to bring up this power dynamic and show that it is intrinsically meaningful for each party. We're not talking about abuse here, although it can be abusive if there's a mismatch. That's my point. If both people are comfortable in this role, in this power dynamic, which is by definition not equal, then level 4 could sustain itself indefinitely. It's very, very clear that you are a boy or girl if you are the gardener and you are watering and tending this plant with absolutely no desire for any type of fulfillment outside your own desire to be the gardener. You tend to them, you worship them, you do what's said by them. There's no expectation for them to treat you special. There's no expectation for them to treat you in any way different than they treat people who they have no relationship with. You can pour your heart and soul and guts out into your companion as a boy or girl and expect nothing in return. And who am I to say that that's not a way to conduct a relationship? Some people like that. Some people get off on that. But what I'm saying here is, in order for this to be a legit, sustainable level within this hierarchy, they both need to be on the same page. There needs to be a boy or a girl, and there needs to be, conversely, a man or a woman. Once again, I'm just using these gender-specific terms in more of a symbolic way of young and old immature and mature, person who is powerless and person who is powerful and who dominates the other. As long as there is a tacit understanding that you are a boy or a girl, or you are the ostensible master of this boy or girl, then you're rocking and rolling. Problems manifest, which I'll discuss in a second, when one person might feel that they have a boyfriend or girlfriend, or even a husband or a wife companion, that they're married, and yet not only are they not treated special, but they're treated like a boy or a girl. Do you see what I'm going with this? It's got to be aligned. And I think elucidating and describing level 5 will enable us to finally tie a knot on this and see how this all comes together. Now, level 5, the lowest in this hierarchy, from, to summarize, soulmate life partner, to husband wife, married couple, to boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever friend, to this boy girl kind of power dynamic, is the fuck boy, fuck girl, the friend with benefits. A boy or a girl is sometimes taken out on the town, usually just to show off, provide some company. Remember, it's a relationship. It's a relationship that can sustain itself over time so long as the parties, the respective parties, are comfortable, define their role, the role of their partner, and they're aligned. One's a plant, one's a gardener. The plant never bears any fruit. And the gardener's okay with that, just pouring it on. Here, it's different. A fuckboy, fuckgirl doesn't cross that public boundary. Or if it does so, it's kind of discreet. It's like they sneak out to the diner and hide in a corner. They don't go to a show. They don't meet the parents. They are a fuck boy or a fuck girl. They exist for one purpose and one purpose only: to provide convenient but typically inconsistent, and here's the thing, never exclusive sex. We've defined the possibility of open relationships everywhere, with the other option, usually considered a foundational option, of monogamy. But if you're a fuck boy or a fuck girl, you're insane to think, and this, in a sense, breaks the definition itself of what a fuck boy or fuck girl is this assumption in any way that it's exclusive. Such a friend with benefits is treated well and treats you well in the sack. The fuel of this relationship, and pretty much its totality, is sex. It's not intimacy. You don't sit around hugging on the couch watching Netflix. You come over and you bang. That's it. Easy come, easy go. You don't buy flowers or bring wine when you show up, and you don't expect to receive them. The relationship is and must remain completely transactional, with the money that's being exchanged being sex. That's the whole point. And the reason I call this out and I give it its own level is that it draws a comparison and a contrast to some of the other levels. And that's the most useful thing to do in strategy. And even when talking about relationships, is if you're confused as to what the relationship is right now, then take a second and try to figure out what it isn't, and put it within the context of how you've been with other people. And the reason level 5, for example, is a level, is that I could have added a level 6, which is a one night stand or a one off. But that's not a relationship. You could be a fuck boy or fuck girl, and you still have a kind of relationship. There's a regularity to it. You could bang once a week or once every 6 months, but you're back. You both liked it. It's great. And here's the thing, again, you're aligned. Neither one of you want to necessarily bump it up to even boy girl, let alone a boyfriend girlfriend. You satisfy each other. You enjoy spending time together. Maybe you'll order a pizza. Maybe you'll do something. You'll play a board game after you bang. But the fuck boy, fuck girl is exactly that. It's sustainable, it can go long term, but there's no depth here. And if you want to maintain this level 5 status, it behooves you not to get too close if you don't want to level up. Leveling up, by its nature, implies not only greater intimacy and sexuality, but a greater and greater emotional commitment to each other. And that could be tricky. It opens up the door to all sorts of stuff. So by default, this fuck boy, fuck girl is a great lowest common denominator kind of relationship. But there's a price to be paid here too. Usually, the fuck boy or the fuck girl or the fuck whatever, one or the other starts to level up regardless of this dynamic, despite it being tacitly understood and defined either implicitly or explicitly that it's no more than a bang. One or the other starts to have feelings, and then it can get messy. And that kind of slippage is common from one level to the next. So you see what I did here? That's why it's useful to kind of orient yourself. Categorize this and try to define where you're at and put it into context. And when problems align, it's usually one or the other partner that starts to either level up or level down. Conversely, you could have a marriage where the two people are dedicated and committed to each other. They're treating each other special, but it starts to slip. One or the other might start considering the other one more of a disposable asset, more of a convenience than a true bond or dedicated relationship. And then things turn messy. So, in summary, at the very top, you have the soulmate life partner. You just know it. You're fist pumping together until you're both in jars next to each other on a shelf. You're buried together in the cemetery, and there's a feeling that you've been together for 1,000 years, and this is your 14th incarnation. Booyah, it's obvious, and people can feel it. Then you have the husband, wife, the married couple who are married, they're each other's person, but they're wrapped around each other in terms of the logistics of life too. They spend time together, they may create a home together, they have children together, they're dedicated to each other. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're monogamous, but usually in our culture, that's associated with this relationship. That does add stability for children. But again, it depends what kind of sauce you want to make with the stew, and it's pretty much wide open. But from this point of view, the husband, wife, married couple are dedicated and they feel secure with each other. Then there's the boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever friend. They're a regular part of each other's life. They could play a power relationship role, like the gardener and the plant, but the plant bears fruit and the gardener gets to eat. Not so with the boy girl. You have a power dynamic, you ratchet down in terms of the intensity, frequency, and dedication, and the one is literally using the other. It's like that line from the Eurythmic song. Some of them want to use you, some of them want to be used by you. For every boy or girl, there's a man or a woman or in between where the dynamic is clear. Both are satisfied, but they're satisfied with this imbalance. And finally, power dynamics aside, there is no power. There's just the power of basically fucking. That's it. You have a good dynamic with someone, tastes good, feels good. You get together again once a week, once every 6 months. It's different from a one night stand or a quick bang, any kind of transactional experience, because, whoop, they're back again. You have each other on the phone, there's booty calls, you like each other, and it's sustainable so long as neither one gets too emotional. It never gets too far behind the fucking, because then it starts leveling up and you're no longer a fuck boy and fuck girl. And if you're out of sync, that could be a problem. Now, you need to know how your lover loves you. As I began this entire analysis, it's vitally important that you are aligned. Relationships are heavenly when they work and pure hell when they don't. Few people deny that. If you look back at your life, the most important aspect of it, kind of the milestones and anchors of everyone's life, are the people that they've been with. Some people say, back in 2018, I worked at this company, and then from 2018 to 2020, people sometimes put their chronology together. But regardless how you see yourself and your life, the anchor points are almost always for everybody the centerpiece of their relationships. And as such, it's probably the most important, most significant aspect of our existence, our relationship with other people, the pinnacle of it being your partnerships on levels 1 through 5. Now, a common reason they fall from grace, regardless of the level, is due, as I'm saying, to the misalignment between what each lover expects from their partnership. And that's defined, as I've been saying, by how each lover defines the other, more or less based on these levels. And once again, regardless which level you're at, happiness can only occur when you both clearly understand and partner up at the same level. I can't overemphasize this. And the number one problem I see in relationships are that soulmates match with their soulmates, husbands with their wives, again, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation, dominators with their submissive boys or girls or whatevers, and fuck buddies fuck their fellow fuck buddies. They have a friends with benefits reciprocal relationship. Now, problems ensue when your partner treats you like a boy, for example, while you treat them like a girlfriend, or worse still, like a wife or a soulmate. They might try to assure you that you're more than just a boy by telling you they love you, but they treat you like a boy, so you're just a boy. This I can't overemphasize. And this is the heart of why I have been bloviating about these 5 levels for the past 54 minutes. The number one mistake that I have made, and I see other couples making this mistake all the time to the point that it's patently obvious what's going on to any observer, but you can't really dive in there, right? And start playing counselor because everyone's going to be upset, is this disparity. And oftentimes the gaslighting and bullshit that goes with the one partner trying to convince the other partner that they're actually defined and being treated a different way than what they feel they're being treated as or defined as. And I know I've been in circumstances where I felt I was just a boy, and I kept getting the assurance that I was so much more than that. And maybe they felt that I was more than that, but selfishness is selfishness. And if you're being treated like shit, you're being treated like shit. And if a person doesn't bother to go beyond the basics of what they normally do every day of the week and just plug you into their life, conveniently like a power charger in their iPhone. They do next to nothing to treat you any more or less special than they do the FedEx guy or the doorman, then you've got a fucking problem. And this is a great way to assess this. Are you just a boy or a girl when you think that you've got a boyfriend or a girlfriend, let alone a husband or wife? I see this everywhere. And this gives context. This gives a lexicon. This gives a mode of analysis. This is a strategic overview for you to realize that you are messed up in your relationship because you are defining them at a level that they do not define you. So if you want fulfillment in love, you have flat out got to cut the bullshit. Ask yourself how you define your love and be crystal clear and realistic about how they define you. The relationship will only work if both of you are self identifying at the same level. These levels can rise or fall, as I mentioned, but you both need to be in sync. So here's the next question. Drum roll, please. How can you determine if your lover is actually on the same level? All right, let me help here. I've tried it. Some success. Let me know. First, figure out what level you see them at. Forget about how they treat you. Forget about how you think that they define you. Figure out what level you see your partner at. Is this person your soulmate or are they your fuckboy? And every level in between, as I've described it here, it might be ad hoc, it's subjective. I made this shit up. Put your own levels together, but you are on a level, right? From soulmate to fuckboy, how do you see them? Once you've defined your own expectations by defining them and describing them, okay, I am a fuckboy. Or I am this person's person. This is my husband. This is my wife. This is my whatever. We are married. It doesn't have to be a piece of paper or a promise to God. It's this, you guys are level 2, okay? You define your own expectations. They are your person. Then it behooves you to probe them, to ask them transparently, openly, honestly, with radical candor, how they define you. Lay it out. Create your own levels. Describe the system. Show the characteristics of each of these hierarchies. And then ask, say, look, I think that I am your boyfriend. I think that I am your husband. I think that I am your boy. I think that I am your fuck boy. Then, drum roll again, who or what do you see me as? And then here again, cut the bullshit. If they say that they are your girlfriend or your wife, then point out that they don't really seem to be meeting the essential criteria thereof, especially around this notion of being treated special and reciprocality. So, whether they're a plant or a gardener, and in cases like this, chances are astronomical that they're the plant. You say, hey, baby, you consider me your husband, but I spend a lot of time watering you. We go to your shows. We hang out with your friends. We do what you want to do most of the time. And I know that every relationship depends on compromise, meeting in the middle. But let's see, let's do the math here. It is actually all about you all the time. If you're boyfriend, girlfriend, you say you're my girlfriend, but why do I feel like a boy? Why do I feel like I'm the one always bringing you flowers, bringing you wine? We do everything that you want to do. It's all about your delicate mood. It's all about the TV shows you want to see. I feel like a boy, but you say you're a girlfriend. You say you're a wife. And conversely, it's the same thing. You consider yourself a wife, but you're being treated like a fuck girl. Where does he go? What does he do? Do you see what I'm getting at? This seems patently obvious, and sometimes the most obvious things in life demand the most attention because they get confusing fast. Why? Because we take things for granted. And in my experience, there's this taking things for granted in terms of defining expectations and the corresponding behaviors that are de facto associated with those specific definitions. It's like you go to the zoo and there's a saber-toothed tiger. You have different expectations for the behavior of that creature than if you're hanging out looking at the three-toed sloth spending 4 hours crawling off a tree to take a shit. To each their own. And this is why this system has some merit too, because it's devoid of not only gender identity and sexual orientation, devoid of the rules of engagement in terms of intimacy and sexuality for all the reasons I've said, but it's devoid of judgment. The only criteria for this to work is alignment. And the only way to determine whether or not that alignment exists is through transparency and enthusiastic and open and honest communication. Stop bullshitting. Stop it. Because it's deceptive. It's a lie. It's manipulative. And notice the difference between the happy and healthy, established level 4 boy-girl relationship and a couple which exhibits a power dynamic and imbalance due to being misaligned. This is critical, and this gets mixed up all the time because the rules of the boy-girl dynamic are based on inequality and unfairness. The basis of the relationship is unfair. But they know this and they welcome it and they get off on it. The plant has no desire to bear any fruit whatsoever, and the gardener doesn't expect it to. But when you get misaligned on any of these other levels, that's not the case. There's deception. There's subterfuge. There is a power imbalance based upon holding back information and not giving it. And that gets to the heart of discord between couples, breakdowns in relationship. And the grand irony of a lot of this is that some relationships start on this wrong foot. There's an implicit understanding from one partner that they're at a certain level, and the other partner knows this but takes advantage of it by remaining silent and assuming that the other is on the same level. The victim of this situation is, in a sense, equally guilty because, like Tony Randall does in that funny YouTube clip about there's a courtroom and he's got a chalkboard and he lectures the witness saying, you should never make an assumption because when you assume, and then he writes ASSU, M-E on the chalkboard. When you assume, you make an ass, and then he underlines the first three letters ASS, you make an ass of, and then he circles the U, and then he circles the M and E. You make an ass of you and me. So once again, implicit understanding or implicit assumptions that we are on the same level does not make us on the same level. You need to verbally and clearly articulate, define, and describe where you're at. I am your soulmate, or I am your fuckboy. We are married. I am your husband and you are my wife, or we are each other's whatever, but ... And you need to make it clear, especially since there's movement between these levels. It's unlikely that two people will start as a fuck boy, fuck girl and wind up soulmates. Presumably, it could happen. Maybe at best, a fuck boy, fuck girl becomes boyfriend, girlfriend, but I could see it evolving into a marriage. Boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever friends evolve into married couples. That's a natural part of the trajectory. But if you're dealing with a boy-girl relationship, then it's highly unlikely that it could evolve, I think, unless that power dynamic could translate into a greater commitment further on. And actually, I will correct myself, given the dynamics of the fetish community, where you can have a dom and a femme who are a married couple, spawning children, having a household, of course. So I will check myself on that one. And actually, my mistake merely reinforces the flexibility of one level evolving into another. But it can only do so with openness, honesty, transparency, and here is the big word in all of this: it is trust. You need to trust each other so you know what to expect. And that's why this exercise is strategic. Because if you're looking at the chessboard from above and you see all the pieces, then you have the most information. You can see how situations change, and you can make accurate predictions about the future. So if you are aspiring to have a life partner, if you are aspiring to be married, have a stable person in your life, you are aspiring to find your person, then it behooves you all the more to communicate openly and honestly as you move through these levels, especially if you get stuck on a level or your partner is gravitating toward a different level and throwing things off. So I hope you enjoyed this analysis, and hearing myself rant about this stuff reveals simultaneously, I think, the power of this simple scheme, if you will, but also the importance of communication in all relationships, regardless where you're at. And I will put as an addendum the importance of frequently communicating, checking in. I have another podcast rant about the very best advice I have ever gotten about relationships, and that is the weekly check in. And what's particularly useful within the context of this analysis of these five levels is a level set, making sure the goal, when you combine that point of view on that podcast with this one, at your weekly check-in, there's an opportunity for both of you to confirm that you are comfortable and thriving and enthusiastically wanting to continue at that level. And it gives a kind of context to that exercise, which in a nutshell is: gather all of the things that bother you or that you love about your partner, throughout the week or in between seeing each other, make a little bulleted list. And then when you have the opportunity in, let's say, a girlfriend, boyfriend, or marriage relationship, put together the same time every week to go through the list of what you love and what drives you crazy about your lover, and share these things periodically to ensure that the lines of communication are open. And when seen through the lens of this 5-level system, that could be an area of focus too. Foundationally, fundamentally, are we on the same level? Are we living it? Are we doing it? And are we honest about it with each other? I'll put the link to the other podcast in this one. I'm interested in what you think, and I'm excited to keep the conversation going. So, once again, regardless of whether you're with a soulmate, you're married, you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever friend, you're a happy boy, girl, or tool, or whether you just have a fuck boy or fuck girl, and chances are you've got several, because exclusivity is by definition not part of that plan, then bless you, keep going, and just keep learning. And I'm eager to hear back from you. Thanks so much for listening. This has been the No Hair, All Heart podcast, and more to come.